Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Frontier, watching the stars through the wide viewing window. His ship was on a normal patrol mission near the edge of human space. Nothing had happened for weeks. The crew was getting bored, but Jake knew that boring was good in space. Boring meant everyone was safe. "Captain," said Lisa Grant from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, a young woman with bright eyes and quick fingers. "I'm picking up something strange." Jake turned around and walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" Lisa frowned at her screen. The numbers and waves dancing across it didn't look right. "It's a distress signal, sir, but it's not from any human ship. The frequency is all wrong." "Alien?" asked Commander Alex Turner, Jake's second in command. Alex was a tall man with graying hair who had served in space for 20 years. He had seen many strange things, but alien distress calls were still rare. "Yes, sir, I think so." Lisa worked her controls, trying to clean up the signal. "It's very weak. Coming from the Kepler system, about 3 light-years from here." Jake felt his heart beat faster. The Kepler system was where the Valdari lived. The Valdari were a peaceful, alien race that looked like tall, thin humans with blue-gray skin. They had helped Earth many years ago when a terrible disease had killed millions of people. The Valdari had shared their medical knowledge and saved billions of human lives. "Can you understand what they're saying?" Jake asked. Lisa nodded slowly. "I'm running it through the translation computer now. Give me a moment." She pressed buttons and listened through her headphones. Her face went pale. "Captain, you need to hear this." Jake put on a headset. The voice that came through was high and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. But the words were full of fear and pain. "This is Elder Zephi of the Valdari Council. Our world is under attack. The Korthok Empire has come to our system with many ships. They are bombing our cities. Millions of our people are dead. We have no weapons to fight them. They demand that we surrender and become their slaves. If anyone can hear this message, please help us. We are peaceful people. We have never hurt anyone. Please, if there is any kindness left in the galaxy, help us." The message repeated again and again. Jake felt sick to his stomach. The Korthok Empire was known throughout the galaxy as a group of warlike aliens who conquered weak planets and made slaves of their people. They were cruel and powerful, with ships that could destroy entire cities. "How many Korthok ships are in the system?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her long-range sensors. "I'm reading at least 200 enemy vessels, sir. Maybe more. They have battleships, cruisers, and fighter wings." Alex whistled low. 200 ships. That's a full invasion fleet. Jake closed his eyes and thought hard. The USS Frontier was just one ship with 40 crew members. What could they do against 200 enemy warships? It would be suicide to attack. But he couldn't just ignore the call for help. The Valdari had saved Earth once. Now Earth had a chance to return the favor. "Lisa, send an emergency message to Fleet Command on Earth. Tell them about the attack on the Valdari. Use the highest priority code." "Yes, sir." Lisa's fingers flew over her controls. "Alex, plot a course for the Kepler system. Maximum speed." Alex stared at him. "Jake, are you crazy? We can't fight 200 ships." "We're not going to fight them," Jake said. "We're going to help evacuate civilians and gather intelligence for the fleet. The Valdari saved billions of human lives. We can't abandon them now." "The fleet might not come," Alex said quietly. "Earth Command might decide it's too dangerous." Jake looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, innocent people were dying. Children were crying for their parents. Families were being torn apart by alien invaders who only wanted power and control. "Then we'll do what we can by ourselves," Jake said. "Set course for Kepler. Engage maximum warp speed." The USS Frontier turned toward the distant star system. The ship's engines hummed louder as they pushed through space faster than light itself. Jake hoped they would not be too late. Meanwhile, far away on Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in her office at Fleet Command. She was a strong woman, with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. When Lisa's message came through, Kate read it 3 times. Then she called an emergency meeting. Defense Minister Paul Carter arrived first. He was a politician who worried more about votes than lives. "Admiral, we can't risk our ships for aliens. The voters won't understand." "The Valdari are not just any aliens," Kate said. "They saved billions of our people during the Great Plague. We owe them a debt. A debt we can't pay if we're all dead," Paul replied. 200 Korthak ships. Our nearest fleet has only 50 vessels. It would be a massacre. Kate stood up and walked to her window. She could see Earth below, blue and green, and beautiful. All those people down there were alive because the Valdari had shared their medicine freely, asking for nothing in return. "Sometimes," Kate said, "doing the right thing costs more than we want to pay. But we do it anyway, because that's what makes us human." She turned back to Paul. "I'm authorizing Operation Thunderstrike. Every ship within 3 sectors is to report for immediate deployment. We're going to save the Valdari, or die trying." Paul shook his head. "The President won't approve this." "The President put me in charge of fleet operations," Kate said, "and I'm making an executive decision. The Valdari called for help. Earth's fleet is going to answer." As alarms began sounding throughout Earth's military bases, ships started moving toward the Kepler system. Captain Jake Morrison and the USS Frontier were no longer alone in their mission. Help was coming, but the question was simple and terrible. Would they arrive in time to save anyone? Admiral Kate Sullivan walked through the busy halls of Fleet Command. Officers ran past her, carrying data pads and orders. The entire base was alive with activity as ships prepared to launch. In just 6 hours, she had managed to gather 50 warships from 3 different sectors. It was not enough to match the Korthak fleet, but it was all they had. Kate entered the briefing room where her captains waited. These were the best officers Earth had to offer. Captain Ben Harris commanded the heavy cruiser USS Titan. He was a big man with strong hands and a calm voice. Captain Amy Rodriguez led the fast attack squadron. She was small but fierce, known for her quick thinking in battle. Captain Steve Collins commanded the marine assault ships. His soldiers could board enemy vessels and fight in spacesuits. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kate began, "you all know why we're here. The Valdari are under attack by the Korthak Empire. Intelligence reports say they have over 200 ships in the Kepler system." Captain Harris raised his hand. "Admiral, what are our orders?" "We're outnumbered 4 to 1. Our mission is simple," Kate replied. "We save as many Valdari lives as possible. The Korthak think they can destroy a peaceful people without anyone caring. They're wrong." Captain Rodriguez leaned forward. "What do we know about Korthak battle tactics?" Intelligence Officer Ryan Murphy stood up. He was a thin man who spent his days studying alien military forces. The Korthak rely on fear and overwhelming firepower. They position their largest ships in the center and use smaller vessels to surround the enemy. They like to broadcast the destruction of cities to break enemy morale. "They're bullies," said Captain Collins. "Bullies pick on weak targets. They don't expect a real fight." Kate nodded. "That's our advantage. They think humans are far away and won't interfere. When we drop out of warp in their system, we'll have complete surprise." The briefing continued for 2 hours. They studied star maps and battle plans. The captains asked questions and made suggestions. When it was over, each officer knew their job. Kate stood alone in the briefing room after the others left. Through the window, she could see the fleet gathering in space. The ships looked small against the black starfield, but each one carried hundreds of brave men and women, ready to risk their lives for strangers. Her communication device beeped. It was a message from Captain Morrison on the USS Frontier. Admiral, this is Morrison. I've reached the edge of the Kepler system. The situation is worse than we thought. The Korthok are bombing civilian targets on the planet's surface. Entire cities are burning. I'm picking up massive refugee movements toward the capital city. The Valdari are trying to gather in one place for protection. Kate felt anger rise in her chest. The Korthok were not just conquering the planet. They were killing innocent people for sport. How much time do we have? She asked. Based on their current attack pattern, I estimate they'll begin the final assault on the capital in 18 hours. There are about 3 million Valdari civilians there. If we don't arrive in time, ... Kate understood. 3 million lives hung in the balance. Hold your position, Captain. Do not engage the enemy. Gather intelligence and stay hidden. The fleet will be there in 16 hours. Understood, Admiral. Morrison out. Kate walked to the hangar bay, where her flagship waited. The USS Valiant was Earth's newest and most powerful warship. Its weapons could destroy a city, and its shields could stop most enemy fire. But even the Valiant was just one ship against hundreds. On the bridge, Kate's crew prepared for departure. Navigation Officer Linda Park plotted their course to the Kepler system. Chief Engineer Carol West checked the ship's systems one final time. Weapons Officer Gary Stone loaded the torpedo tubes and charged the energy cannons. All ships report ready for departure, Admiral, said her first officer. Commander Sam Brooks. Kate looked at the main screen. The Earth fleet floated in formation, waiting for her order. Each ship represented families back home who would worry until their loved ones returned. But Kate knew that some of these brave people would not come back. War always demanded a price. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Sullivan. Operation Thunderstrike is authorized. All ships, engage maximum warp speed. Destination, Kepler system. The stars stretched into long lines as the fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. Kate sat in her command chair and watched the starfield flow past. 16 hours to travel 3 light years. 16 hours to save 3 million innocent lives. During the journey, Kate received regular reports from Captain Morrison. The Korthok were taking their time, enjoying the fear they created. They would destroy a neighborhood, then wait for the survivors to run. Then they would destroy another neighborhood. It was like a cruel game to them. The Valdari were helpless. Their ships were designed for exploration and trade, not war. Their weapons were mining lasers and construction tools. Against Korthok battleships, they might as well throw rocks. But the Valdari were not giving up. They organized rescue teams to pull people from burning buildings. They shared food and water with refugees. They sang their traditional songs to keep spirits up. Even facing death, they remained kind and peaceful. Kate read Morrison's reports and felt proud. These were the people Earth was coming to save. People who faced extinction but still helped their neighbors. People who chose hope over despair. Admiral, said Communications Officer Beth Clark, we're receiving another transmission from Captain Morrison. Morrison's voice filled the bridge. Admiral, the Korthok commander is broadcasting a message to the Valdari. You need to hear this. A new voice came through the speakers. It was harsh and cold, speaking in the Korthok language. The translation computer turned it into English words. Pathetic Valdari, the voice said. Your resistance is amusing but pointless. In 10 hours, we will begin our final attack on your capital city. You have 2 choices, surrender and become our slaves, or die fighting. Either way, your world now belongs to the Korthok Empire. Your peaceful ways have made you weak. Weakness deserves destruction. The message ended. Kate's bridge crew sat in angry silence. 10 hours, said Commander Brooks. We'll be cutting it close. Kate checked the navigation display. They still had 6 hours of travel time left. Then they would need time to organize their attack. It would be very close. Send a message to all ships. Kate ordered. Push engines to maximum safe speed. We're going to make it, even if we have to tear our ships apart doing it. The fleet increased speed. In engineering rooms throughout the flotilla, officers pushed their engines beyond normal limits. They knew the risk. Ships could be repaired or replaced. The 3 million Valdari civilians could not. Kate stood and walked to the main view screen. Somewhere ahead of them, a peaceful world was burning, but Earth's fleet was coming, bringing hope and human determination. The Korthok thought they could destroy the weak without consequences. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The human fleet dropped out of warp space at the edge of the Kepler system. Admiral Kate Sullivan stared at her main screen and felt her heart sink. The Korthok fleet was even larger than intelligence had reported. Over 250 dark warships filled the space around the Valdari homeworld. The planet itself glowed with the red light of burning cities. "My God," whispered Commander Sam Brooks. "Look what they've done." The beautiful blue-green world that Captain Morrison had described was now covered in smoke clouds. Entire continents showed the orange glow of massive fires. The Korthok had been thorough in their destruction. "Admiral," said Communications Officer Beth Clark, "Captain Morrison is hailing us from the USS Frontier." Morrison's face appeared on the screen. His usually calm expression showed anger and sadness. "Admiral, thank God you're here. The situation is desperate. The Korthok have destroyed most of the major cities. The Valdari survivors are gathered in the capital city of Setandar. About 3 million civilians, maybe more." "What's the enemy's position?" Kate asked. "The main Korthok fleet is in high orbit over the capital. They're preparing for bombardment. Ground forces have surrounded the city. The Valdari have no military forces left. It's just civilians down there." Kate studied the tactical display. The Korthok ships were arranged in a defensive formation around the planet. Their largest battleships formed the center, with cruisers and destroyers spread out in protective rings. It was a strong position, but Kate saw weaknesses. "Captain Harris, take your heavy ships and prepare for a frontal assault. You'll draw their attention and their fire." Ben Harris nodded from his bridge. "Understood, Admiral. The USS Titan and her group will keep them busy." "Captain Rodriguez, your fast attack squadron will hit their left flank. Use your speed to stay ahead of their targeting systems." Amy Rodriguez smiled grimly. "We'll dance around them until they're dizzy." "Admiral, Captain Collins, position your Marines for boarding actions. We need to capture some of their command ships and disrupt their communications." Steve Collins checked his equipment. "My boys are ready, Admiral. We've been waiting for a real fight." Kate took a deep breath. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. Today, we fight not for territory or resources, but for the simple right of innocent people to live in peace. The Korthok think they can destroy the weak without consequences. Let's show them they're wrong." The human fleet moved forward. Captain Harris led the first wave, his heavy cruisers charging directly at the enemy's center. The Korthok commanders were caught completely by surprise. They had not expected any challenge to their attack. Enemy ships detected. Came panicked voices over Korthok communication channels that the humans were monitoring. Unknown fleet approaching from Galactic South. The first Korthok battleship opened fire. Massive energy beams shot across space toward the USS Titan. Captain Harris ordered evasive maneuvers, and his ship rolled away from the deadly fire. "Return fire," Harris commanded. "All weapons, target their command ship." The USS Titan's main gun spoke. Blue energy bolts struck the Korthok battleship's shields, causing them to flicker and spark. Other human heavy ships joined the attack. The enemy's front line began to waver. At the same time, Captain Rodriguez brought her fast attack squadron around the enemy's left side. Her ships were smaller, but much quicker than the Korthok vessels. They darted between the enemy ships like angry wasps, firing missiles and energy torpedoes. "This is Rodriguez to all fast attack units. target their sensor arrays and communication dishes, blind them. Her ships spread out and began hitting specific targets on the Korthok ships. Explosions bloomed across enemy hulls as vital systems were destroyed. The Korthok formation began to break apart as ships lost contact with each other on the surface of the planet. Marine Colonel Dan Foster led his troops toward the capital city. The Korthok had landed thousands of ground troops to surround the Valdari civilians. Foster's Marines dropped from orbit in armored pods, landing behind enemy lines. Alpha Team, secure the north approach to the city. Bravo Team, clear the enemy artillery positions. Charlie Team, set up defensive lines to protect civilian evacuation routes. The Marines moved with deadly efficiency. Each soldier wore powered armor that made them stronger and faster than normal humans. Their weapons could punch through Korthok battlesuits. Years of training made them work together like parts of a single machine. Inside the capital city, Elder HFY watched the sky with amazement. Explosions lit up the darkness as human and Korthok ships battled overhead. The elderly Valdari leader had given up hope hours ago. Now strange aliens were fighting to save his people. Elder, said his aide, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Kate Sullivan's face appeared on their communication screen. Elder HFY, this is Admiral Sullivan of the Earth Fleet. We received your distress call. Help has arrived. HFY felt tears in his large, dark eyes. Admiral, we are grateful beyond words. But there are so many enemy ships. How can you possibly leave that to us? Kate said firmly. We need you to prepare your people for evacuation. Our Marines are creating safe corridors out of the city. Can you organize the civilians? Yes, Admiral. Our people will be ready. Back in space, the battle was reaching a critical point. The human fleet was smaller, but fighting with desperate courage. Lieutenant Commander Tom Bradley led a squadron of fighter ships through the enemy formation. His tiny craft dodged between massive Korthok battleships, targeting their weapon systems. This is Bradley to all fighter wings. Follow me in. We're going after their command ship's communication array. The fighters dove toward the largest Korthok vessel like arrows shot from a bow. Enemy defensive fire filled space around them with deadly energy beams. 2 human fighters exploded, but the others pressed on. Bradley's ship fired a precise missile that destroyed the command ship's main antenna. Direct hit. Their fleet command is blind. On the USS Valiant, Engineering Chief Carol West worked frantically to keep the ship's weapons powered. Enemy fire had damaged several power conduits, and the main engines were running at dangerous levels. Engineering to bridge, she called. We're at 120% power. I can't keep this up much longer. How much more time can you give us? Kate asked. 10 minutes, maybe 15. After that, we'll have to shut down weapons to prevent a reactor explosion. Kate looked at the tactical display. The battle was going better than expected, but they were still outnumbered. The Korthok were regrouping, bringing their largest ships to bear on the human fleet. Then Captain Collins called from his marine ship. Admiral, we've successfully boarded 3 enemy vessels. My teams have captured their bridge crews and secured vital intelligence. What did you find? The Korthok fleet has orders to destroy the planet if they can't capture it intact. If we keep winning this battle, they might try to crack the world's surface. Kate felt cold fear grip her heart. Even if they won the space battle, the enemy might destroy the entire planet out of spite. How long until they could carry out that threat? Unknown, Admiral, but we need to end this fight quickly. Kate made a decision that would determine the fate of 3 million innocent lives. All ships, concentrate fire on the enemy command vessel. We're going to cut off the head of this snake. The entire human fleet turned toward the largest Korthok battleship. Every weapon they had focused on that single target. The enemy ship's shields began to fail under the massive assault, but the Korthok had one more surprise waiting. Warlord Thrazak stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched his fleet fall apart. The humans had appeared from nowhere and turned his easy conquest into a real battle. His massive Korthok warships, built to intimidate weak enemies, were being outfought by smaller human vessels. "Warlord," said his tactical officer, "we have lost 30 ships. The humans are targeting our command and control systems. Our fleet coordination is breaking down." Thrazak's forearms moved angrily. His species looked like giant insects with gray armor-like skin. The Korthok had conquered dozens of worlds through fear and overwhelming force. No one had ever challenged them like this. "Activate the planet destroyers," he ordered. "If we cannot have this world, then no one can." Hidden among the regular warships were 3 massive vessels designed for one purpose: cracking planets apart. Each ship carried weapons that could shatter a world's crust and turn it into floating rubble. The Korthok used them when they wanted to send a message to other potential enemies. On the USS Valiant, Science Officer Janet Parker was monitoring enemy communications when she detected the new threat. Her instruments showed massive energy buildups in 3 previously quiet Korthok ships. "Admiral," she called out urgently, "I'm reading huge power spikes from 3 enemy vessels. Energy signatures match planetary bombardment weapons." Kate Sullivan felt her blood turn to ice. "How long until they can fire?" 18 minutes, Admiral. Maybe less." Kate looked at the tactical display. Her fleet was winning the space battle, but slowly. They could not destroy 3 planet killer ships in 18 minutes. The Valdari world would be destroyed along with its 3 million survivors. "Captain Harris, can your heavy ships reach those planet destroyers?" Ben Harris checked his navigation computer. "Negative, Admiral. We're too far away and too engaged with enemy battleships. It would take us 25 minutes to fight through to them." "Captain Rodriguez?" "Same problem, Admiral. My fast ships could get there quicker, but our weapons aren't strong enough to penetrate their armor." Kate closed her eyes and made a decision that went against every rule of naval warfare. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. I'm ordering a direct assault on the enemy flagship. We're going to ram their command ship." Commander Brooks stared at her. "Admiral, that's suicide. The Valiant will be destroyed." "Better one ship than an entire planet," Kate replied. "Helm, set collision course with the Korthok command vessel. Maximum speed." Throughout the human fleet, officers heard the Admiral's order with shock and pride. Captain Harris was the first to respond. "Admiral, the USS Titan volunteers to join your attack run." "Negative, Captain. One ship is enough. Continue your mission." But Harris was already turning his heavy cruiser toward the enemy flagship. "Sorry, Admiral. My ship was damaged in the last exchange. Helm control is stuck. We seem to be heading straight for that Korthok battleship." Other captains began reporting similar malfunctions. Within minutes, half the human fleet was charging directly at the enemy command ship. The Korthok had never seen anything like it. Their enemies were deliberately sacrificing themselves. Warlord Thrazak watched the human ships approach and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. These aliens were willing to die to save people they barely knew. It made no sense to the Korthok mind, which valued only strength and conquest. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Get us away from those ships." But the massive Korthok flagship was too big and slow to avoid the smaller, faster human vessels. The USS Valiant struck first, her reinforced bow punching through the enemy ships, shields and armor. The impact tore through both vessels, causing massive explosions. Kate felt her ship shake apart around her. Emergency lights flashed as systems failed throughout the Valiant. But her sacrifice had worked. The enemy flagship was crippled, its command center destroyed. Captain Harris arrived seconds later. The USS Titan rammed the enemy ship's engine section, causing a chain reaction that tore the massive vessel in half. Harris and his crew died in the explosion, but they had taken the enemy commander with them. With their flagship destroyed and Warlord Thrazak dead, the Korthok fleet began to panic. Their rigid command structure could not function without central control. Ship captains started making their own decisions, and most of those decisions involved retreat. But the 3 planet destroyers continued their charging sequence. Their captains were following the Warlord's final order. Even with their commander dead, Lieutenant Kyle Anderson was a young engineer aboard one of Captain Collins' Marine ships. When he heard about the planet destroyers, he volunteered for the most dangerous mission of his life. "I can board one of those ships and shut down their weapon systems," he told Captain Collins. "My engineering training covers Korthok technology." Collins looked at the young man's determined face. Kyle was only 22 years old, barely out of the academy. "Son, those ships will be heavily defended. You might not make it back. 3 million people will definitely not make it back if those weapons fire," Kyle replied. Collins nodded. "Take a full Marine squad with you, and Kyle, come home safe." Kyle's boarding pod launched from the Marine ship and flew toward the nearest planet destroyer. Enemy defensive fire filled space around the small craft, but Kyle's pilot managed to evade the worst of it. They crashed through the Korthok ship's hull and fought their way inside. The interior of the enemy vessel was like a nightmare. Dark corridors filled with alien machinery and the sound of weapons charging. Kyle and his Marine escort battled through waves of Korthok defenders, pushing toward the ship's power core. "This way," Kyle shouted, reading the alien symbols on the walls. His academy training had included basic Korthok language and ship design. The main reactor is 3 levels down. They fought through each level, losing Marines to enemy fire. By the time they reached the reactor chamber, only Kyle and 2 Marines remained. The massive weapon was almost ready to fire. Energy readings showed they had less than 3 minutes. Kyle ran to the main control panel and began shutting down systems. His hands flew over alien controls, following procedures he had memorized but never practiced. One mistake would trigger an explosion that would kill them all. 2 minutes, sir," called Sergeant Mike Torres, one of the surviving Marines. "Can you do it?" "Almost there," Kyle muttered, sweat dripping down his face. "Just need to reverse the power flow, and there." The planet destroyer's weapon powered down with a deep groaning sound. The ship shuddered as its massive energy system shut off. Kyle had saved 3 million lives, but their escape route was cut off. Korthak soldiers surrounded the reactor chamber, trapping the small human team inside. "Sergeant," Kyle said quietly, "can you and Lopez get to the escape pods?" "Not without you, sir." Kyle looked at the reactor controls. The Korthok would restart the weapon as soon as the humans left. There was only one way to make sure it stayed off permanently. "Go," Kyle ordered. "That's a direct command." The 2 Marines reluctantly retreated to the escape pods. Kyle remained behind, working at the controls. He overloaded the reactor's safety systems, causing a controlled explosion that would destroy the ship's weapon but leave the rest of the vessel intact. As the reactor began to overload, Kyle thought about his family back on Earth. His parents would be proud of what he had done. 3 million innocent people would live because he had been willing to sacrifice himself. The explosion took Kyle Anderson and the planet destroyer's weapon with it, but his sacrifice inspired the remaining human ships to fight even harder. The other 2 planet destroyers were destroyed by concentrated fleet fire before they could charge their weapons. With their flagship gone, their planet destroyers eliminated, and their fleet scattered, the surviving Korthok ships began retreating from the system. The battle was over. Earth's fleet had won against impossible odds. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the USS Frontier, having transferred there after the Valiant was destroyed. Around her, the crew worked to help Korthok survivors and assess the damage to both fleets. "Admiral," said Captain Morrison, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." Elder Zephyhi's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, crowds of Valdari civilians cheered and sang, "Admiral Sullivan, how can we ever thank you? Your people fought like heroes to save us." Kate thought about Captain Harris, Lieutenant Anderson, and all the others who had given their lives. "Elder, we did what any decent people would do. When someone calls for help, you answer." But the victory was just the beginning. News of the battle would spread throughout the galaxy, and everything would change. 3 months after the Battle of Kepler, the galaxy was a very different place. News of Earth's victory had spread to hundreds of star systems, carried by traders, diplomats, and refugees. Everyone wanted to know about the humans who had challenged the mighty Korthok Empire, and Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the newly built Valdari Defense Station, looking out at the peaceful blue world below. The station orbited high above the planet, its weapons and shields ready to protect the Valdari from any future attacks. Human and Valdari engineers had worked together to build it in record time. "Admiral," said Captain Jake Morrison, who had been promoted to Admiral after the battle, "the morning briefing is ready." Kate walked into the conference room where officers from both species worked side by side. The Valdari had proven to be excellent partners. Their advanced technology combined with human tactical thinking created powerful new defense systems. "What's our status report?" Kate asked. Commander Alex Turner, now serving as Morrison's second-in-command, stood up. "The refugee camps have been completely cleared. All 3 million Valdari survivors have been relocated to new settlements. The cities are being rebuilt with human construction assistance." "Medical report," said Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's chief medical officer. "The last of the injured have been released from our hospitals. Valdari healing techniques combined with human medicine have worked amazingly well." Kate nodded. The cooperation between humans and Valdari had been extraordinary. They shared knowledge freely, each species learning from the other. Human soldiers taught Valdar young people basic self-defense. Valdar scientists shared their advanced medical knowledge with human doctors. "Any word from Earth?" Kate asked. Morrison smiled. "President Martinez sends his congratulations. The Earth Council has officially approved the establishment of the Galactic Protection Fleet. We're getting 50 new ships and 5,000 additional personnel." Kate felt pride and worry at the same time. Earth was taking on a big responsibility, but after what had happened to the Valdari, no one could argue that the galaxy needed protectors. "Speaking of the Galactic Protection Fleet," said Communications Officer Lisa Grant, "we've received 17 formal requests for protection from other species. The Zentari Republic wants us to escort their trade ships. The Melody colonies are asking for defense against pirate raids, and the—" "Slow down," Kate said with a laugh. "We can't protect everyone at once. We'll need to prioritize based on threat levels and our available resources." The door chimed, and Elder Zephyr entered the room. The elderly Valdari leader had become a close friend to the human officers. His people had officially asked him to serve as liaison between the two species. "Admiral Sullivan," he said in his musical voice, "I bring greetings from the Valdari Council. We have completed our investigation into the Korthok Empire's files. During the battle, Captain Collins' Marines had captured several enemy ships intact. The intelligence they found had shocked everyone. The Korthok had detailed plans for conquering dozens of peaceful worlds. The Valdari were just the first target in a campaign of galactic domination." "What did you discover?" Kate asked. Zephyr activated a holographic display. It showed a map of the local galaxy, with red markers indicating planned Korthok attacks. 43 worlds were scheduled for invasion over the next 5 years. Most of them are peaceful species with little or no military capability. Kate studied the map. Each red marker represented millions of innocent lives that would have been lost. "Where are the Korthok forces now?" "Scattered," Morrison replied. "After we destroyed their main fleet, the Empire fractured into dozens of smaller groups. Some are fighting each other for control, Others have retreated to their home systems. A few groups are still raiding isolated worlds, but nothing like their previous scale. That's the good news, added Turner. The bad news is that other aggressive species are trying to fill the power vacuum. The Hegron Syndicate has expanded into 3 former Korthok territories. The Vorthan clans are raiding refugee convoys. Kate sighed. Winning one battle had solved one problem, but created several others. We'll deal with each threat as it comes. What about the Galactic Council? Have they responded to our request for recognition? Zephihai's expression brightened. Yes, Admiral. The Council has agreed to meet with Earth representatives next month. They want to discuss formal recognition of human authority in this sector. That was huge news. The Galactic Council included the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. For thousands of years, they had mostly ignored younger species, like humanity. But Earth's victory over the Korthok had forced them to pay attention. Who will represent Earth at the meeting? Morrison asked. President Martinez is sending Ambassador Linda. Shunkage replied. She's one of our best diplomats. But the real question is what terms they'll offer us. Over the next few weeks, more news arrived from across the galaxy. The story of the Battle of Kepler had inspired other species to resist Korthok raids. The Androni system had successfully fought off an attack using tactics copied from human military manuals. The Corelli Federation had formed their own defense fleet based on Earth's example, but the most significant development came from an unexpected source. Captain Amy Rodriguez, leading a patrol mission near the Galactic Rim, discovered a hidden Korthok base, preparing for revenge attacks on human colonies. Admiral Rodriguez reported via long-range communication, "This isn't just a raiding base. They have at least 30 warships here, including some new designs we haven't seen before. Intelligence suggests they're planning coordinated strikes on Earth's outer colonies." Kate made a quick decision. All available ships are to rendezvous at Rodriguez's position. We're not going to wait for them to attack us. The new Galactic Protection Fleet moved swiftly. Unlike the desperate rush to save the Valdari, this was a planned military operation. Human ships arrived at the Korthok base in perfect formation, supported by Valdari sensor ships and medical vessels. The battle was swift and decisive. The Korthok remnants fought bravely, but they were facing a very different human fleet than before. These ships were built specifically for protecting others. With advanced weapons and shields designed by human and Valdari engineers working together, Lieutenant Commander Tom Bradley, now a captain, led the fighter squadrons that destroyed the enemy's defensive platforms. "This is for Kyle Anderson and all the others," he transmitted as his ships swept through the enemy formation. The Korthok base surrendered after losing half their ships. More importantly, the humans captured detailed intelligence about other remnant groups plotting revenge attacks. 1 month later, Ambassador Linda Chen stood before the Galactic Council on the ancient world of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 200 species filled the vast chamber, their alien forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. "Honored Council," Chen began. "Humanity requests formal recognition as a guardian species with authority to protect peaceful worlds from aggressive forces." The Council's senior member, an ancient being called the Architect, spoke in a voice like distant thunder. "The Council has observed humanity's actions in the Kepler system. Your species showed remarkable courage and sacrifice for people, not your own. We did what anyone should do when innocent people call for help," Chen replied simply. "That is precisely why the Council grants your request," the Architect said. "Humanity is hereby recognized as a guardian species, with full authority to establish protection fleets and defensive stations throughout the galaxy. The Council pledges its support for your efforts." The chamber erupted in sounds from dozens of different species, cheers, musical tones, rhythmic clapping, and other expressions of approval. Humanity had officially become the galaxy's protectors. Back at Valdari Defense Station, Kate received the news with mixed emotions. It was a great honor, but also a tremendous responsibility. Earth's fleet would now be expected to respond to threats throughout the galaxy. "Admiral," said Morrison, "we're receiving another distress call. The Pelion system is under attack by unknown raiders." Kate smiled and walked to the communications console. She opened a channel to the threatened world. "This is Admiral Sullivan of the Earth's Galactic Protection Fleet. We received your signal. Help is on the way." As the human fleet prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Kate thought about Lieutenant Kyle Anderson and all the others who had sacrificed themselves to save the Valdari. Their deaths had not been in vain, because of their courage. The galaxy was becoming a safer place for peaceful species everywhere. The phrase they cried for help and Earth's fleet answered in force had become more than just words. It was a promise that humanity would keep, no matter the cost. The stars waited, and Earth's guardians were ready to answer any call for help that might come.